Hello everyone, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to create an interactable object using an interface in C++. So the template I'm going to be using for this is the third person template. I'm going to be using C++, target platform, desktop, quality preset and maximum, then call the project whatever you would like. I already have a project that I've been creating with my HUD series, so I'm going to use that one because it uses that template, but the only thing I've been touching is the game mode and the actual HUD for the player. So the stuff we'll be touching in today's video will be the template stuff used for the template project. Alright, let's jump in and create an interface. So when you're in all, go C++ classes, HUD series, I've called it, and then new C++ class. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, you will find Unreal Interface. So let's set up the interface. I'm going to put it in a folder called Interfaces. I'm going to call the interface Interactable Interface. You can call it whatever you like, but I like to call it Interactable Interface. So if I put this interface on something, I know that object will be interactable. So let's create the class. Class has now been created. We don't need to use the CPP. I'm just going to use the header file. I'm going to delete this code out, even though it doesn't really do anything. It just annoys me seeing so much green commented code. So we're going to add the interface functions in the public. So here we go. That, perfect. So it's going to be a U function, blueprint callable, blueprint native event, and then the category it's going to go under is interactable. I did HUD series for me, but okay. I'm going to call the function void interactable. I'll put uninteractable, sounds much better. Uninteract actually, we'll go with. And then we're going to pass in the player character. So it will be a HUD series character. I like to add the forward declaration. It's going to be a pointer. I'm going to call that char for character. Char like that, so it thinks it's a variable char. The next thing we can pass in is the player controller if we need it. So mine will be a HUD series player controller. Add forward declaration. I'll call this PC. The player controller. I need to put that as a pointer. Perfect. And then we want to do end interact. The next one, we'll just copy and paste that one. I'm going to put on interact and then end interact. So I think that's everything perfect. That's set up. That is your interactable interface all set up. It's in the UI folder. Now let's set up the interactable object we want. So we're going to make a base class, which your objects will inherit from. So let's jump back into here. Let's create a new class. So we're going to have an actor class. I'm just going to call this interactable base. So this is just the interactable objects that we're going to be interacting with. I'm going to put in a file of interactables. So let's just create that. Perfect. Alright, that's all loaded. So for the interactables base, everything you have on this class will trickle down into your child classes of this class. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm just going to get rid of all the comments, which I hate, get rid of tick, which I never use. Timers are 10 times better. You can pause them. Triple base, there's base H. Right, so what do we need? We also need the interactable interface. We need to add it to this object. So it's public I interactable interface. So now we'll be able to get the functions from interactable interface. So we're going to put it protected. We're going to do virtual. I'm sorry, it jumped onto the wrong one. Virtual void. And uninteractable. It should come up. Uninteractable implementation. The autocorrect, it does do it for you. It's going to generate that in there. And we can do this, we can duplicate that because we know the next one's called end. End interactable. What's going on here? There we have it, we have them both there. We're making new functions. And let's add this one in. Now we have on interact and end interact implemented in the CPP. We can call code in here. Let's just say we want to flip the object, which we will do, but I'm going to put it on the object instead of the base class. But anything we want to trickle down into all the children classes, you can put it on the base class. So that's really good functionality. Let's say they all play a sound when they are hit, and it's all the same sound. You can put it in the base class, implementate on the interact implementation, and it'll play on all the children class. You can also change the sound on the children, and that will change the sound for each child. Anyway, so let's get this all fully working. On the interactable base class, the first we also want, we'll have a scene component. So new property, edit anywhere, blueprint read write. I'm going to call this category interactable. Double R for some reason, and then we need the T object pointer. T object pointer be use scene. Use scene component. Just call it scene component. Perfect. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to have two more. The one we also need on the object is a collision box, so I'm going to use box component. We'll call this collision box. This is what will get collided with, and then I need to give it a static mesh. T object pointer, use static mesh component, and then call it box mesh. And we just need to do a forward declare there. Add that forward declare. That looks perfect. Is that everything I need to do for the H? I think that is. Let's jump into the CPP. We need to call scene component. We need to create it. Luckily, autocorrect does it on Rider. So we've got scene component, create default subobject, the use scene component. It's called its scene component. So when you're in UE, so let's just show for example. Let's just go to a class. Let's just say, give me a blueprint character. On the left hand side, up on the components here, you'll see something called scene component. That's what we've just created. I'll show you more in a moment. So I thought I'll just show you that dead quick. So we want to attach that to the root component. So scene component equals root component. We also want to create the collision box. Equals create default subobject, and then it's box collision. I'm pretty sure new box component. Sorry, I did call it U-box component in the previous one, didn't I? Yeah, U-box component. And then you can just give it a name. I'm going to call it box collider, maybe, or yeah. Sorry, box. Struggling to spell, but at least it's working. And then we're going to attach the collision box. So, what is it doing now? Set up. Or attachment, I think it was, and then just put the scene component. A lot of this is coming off my head, so I'm having to remember. Sorry if sometimes I stutter. I'm trying my best. The best I can do. Next, we want the actual box mesh. So I Interactive mesh components, create box mesh, that's perfect for me again. And then box mesh. Set up attachment to the collision box. That's perfect. Actually no, that needs to be scene component. I don't want it to be attached to that. Apologies for that. So, perfect. That is the interactable base all sorted. Now let's just jump into creating in here. So, get rid of that. Let's live code that quick. That's all live coded. Now let's create another class that inherits from interactables. So, new class. All classes. This time you'll have to type in the class you've created, interactable base, which is right there. And let's say I'm going to call this interactable box. Perfect. Let's create that. Interactable box has been created. So let's create a protected section again, and then we want to use the functions we had before. So we'll do virtual void. We can have big M play if we need it. And virtual void. I think it's on interactor called, sorry. I have to remember. On interact implementation. I'll just duplicate that. Give it a U function header. Same again, U function. Change that to end. I'm going to create the implementations. Perfect. Right now, so let's have a little play. And when it on interact, let's get the box mesh. Box mesh, we can get that, and then we'll check if the box mesh is valid first. Is valid. So we don't get a crash. Box mesh. And then with the box mesh, let's add an impulse. Just to make it jump so we know that we have interacted with it. Add impulse using F vector. Let's have 100 on the Z. I don't really want a magic number there, so I'm going to say make a quick float. Wrong view property. Float. Call it jump value. There we go. Have we gone? Jump value. I'm going to equal that to 100. Actually, I'll have that edit anywhere, so we can edit in the blueprint, so I don't have to always keep live coding. Blueprint read write. That's perfect. Jump value is 100. Perfect. So when the player interacts with the box, it should add an impulse upwards of 100. Hopefully that works. We'll see. But now we need to make it so the character can interact with the player. I mean the box. Sorry, the character can interact with the box. So we need to play around with the box, and how we're going to do that is we need to add a box collision to the character. Let's jump in the character. The character needs a box collision itself as well. View property in the character, and we'll call it visible anywhere. Have a category under components, and then meta allow private access is true. All fine. We need a T-object pointer, and then we're going to call it view box component. Sorry, I was just looking at some notes. It took me a minute because there's a lot to type in and remember for this. I don't want to miss anything out. View box component. Perfect. Now in protected, I'm just going to add it bottom protected. Yeah, I'll put it in there. We need a function for when it overlaps. So if you add a U function here, I'll just show you. If you type in void, I have this wrote down, so I'm gonna copy and paste actually. With overlap and end overlap. So I will leave it on screen if you want to copy and paste. Leave it on screen for a moment. We've got on overlap with a primitive component, actor, other actor, primitive component, other component, int32 other body index, ball B from sweep, and hit result. So I have that. That's the on overlap. End overlap is essentially the same, but with less variables in the function. So let's create these both. Oh. Right, they're both created. Oh, I forgot to create one more. I want to be able to get the player controller. So new property. I want to pass it through to the interactable objects. I'm doing this. So T object pointer, and it's a HUD player controller. Add forward declaration. Add forward player controller. Which is called PC on there. So there we go. Player controller. First thing we need to do is create a box. So we've got the box collision. What do they call it? Box collision? Right, there we go. Box component. Box component equals create. Default subobject. And then we could have a toolbox component. I keep forgetting, apologies. Toolbox component, and then just call it box component. The compiler wants to call it weirdly. Rider, bloody hell. And then box collision. Box component again, sorry. Equals. We'll do get mesh. Into the mesh. Sorry, I've set that up the wrong way. Yeah, set up attachment. Get mesh. Set up attachment, get mesh. Perfect. I've also just noticed, guys, there's no begin play, which we will be needing. So I'm gonna make a void begin. We definitely need a begin play. And in begin play, you know, the delegate for when it overlaps. So box components. On components. Begin overlap. Got add dynamic. I'm going to use this. And we're going to call it so it's reference to a HUD series on overlap. I'm essentially going to do the same for end overlap. Component, end overlap, and then I'm going to call this one, and then is it on end overlap I've called it? Yes, I have. It's perfect. So the character now gets a delegate when it overlaps. So let's set up these functions. First off, I want to get this player controller from the function, and then equal it to the PC that's been passed in. I want to get the controller, equals get controller. This is if you want the controller. Get controller, and then pass in a series player controller. Pass that in the wrong section, don't worry about that. There we go, just like that. Perfect. Now I want to check if the object pointer is it a, what did I call my interactable? A interactable base. Interactable base. Interactable. Let's call it interactable. Equals cast to interactable base of that. I've spelled that wrong. Perfect. So the object that overlaps is interactable. And it has is the interactable object. It'll pass in this, and then now we need to check. So we're going to do if it has the interface, and so we're doing U Kismatic. I need Kismatic system library. There it is. Now we need to check, does it implement in the interface? So we're going to pass in the interactable. And then we're going to pass in the U. We need UI interactable. UI interactive interface. Get a static class of it. So yeah, we're checking if it has the interactable interface. If it does, then we want to execute the interface. So AI interactable interface, and then executes on end interact with interactable. What we're passing in is the object that's being interacted. Caption is on. Interactable. This, and then the player controller. That's perfect. We want to do exactly the same, but on overlap. So paste. The only thing we're going to change is on interact there. So execute that. So that should all be working perfectly now. So I think that's all the code we need. The last thing we need to do is set up in UE. Let's jump in. Just a quick thing, guys. I put U functions on the interactable implementation on the interactable box. We don't need to have that on there. Apologies for that. Create begin play as well. That's if we need it for the interactable box. Anyway, back to live coding. Now that it's live coded, I'm just going to create the object. One moment. C++ classes, HUD series, interactables. Let's create the box. Create blueprint class. I'll call it BP underscore interactable box. Perfect. Collision box is there. Let's add a box mesh. Let's just type in box. Take the standard one. Why is it tiny? Why is it so small? That one. Where's the standard box? We usually don't you have a UE standard box? A little blue one that everyone hates. Right, we'll go with that box. So as you see, they've got the collision box there. We can make that a bit bigger. We'll lock the scale so it makes it bigger. And all that's easy. Let's put that to 2 actually. Perfect. So now we've got that in the world. Let's drag and drop it in the world. I'm not sure if we have simulate physics on the box mesh. I'm assuming you want that because it'll look better. Let's just play it dead quick. So yeah, it's there. Perfect. Now let's just do the character. Could be added the box collider to that as well. That's character, first person character. box component is tiny. So let's make it a bit bigger like that. You don't have to use a box, you can have a sphere collider. You can have whatever you want. Right now guys, I'm back. Sorry, I had a little bug. I've changed the jump value to 25,000. I've also changed the collision box to 4 on the scale for X, Y, and Z. And I'm just going to show you that it works. You go into it. So on interacting with the collision box, it is making it jump. The jump velocity 25,000. Because it keeps landing in. That's when you on interact with. That is when you want to interact with it. So that's everything for the video. I hope you enjoyed. The next video will be carrying on with my HUD series, showing how when you interact with an object you can show some UI. We'll also be doing spatial UI. I can also do more videos to do with interacting with objects. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.